This is not something that needs to merely stop at a poll promise or as a slogan, as a fancy slogan, because it's good to hear. To what extent this is going to work on ground? Let's in fact make a start with Mr. A. Saravanan with us, spokesperson of the DMK with us. There's of course been a lot of ruckus with respect to what the DMK also just announced along similar lines, but on a lesser amount, saying that it's going to be 1,000 rupees per homemaker here, and being accused by the M party, which is actor turned politician Kamal Hassan's party. They're saying that this is an idea that's been plagiarized. They mentioned it first in January, and the DMK mentions it more recently, and right now, this minute, you have the AIDMK promising the same as well. So, Mr. Saravanan, you have also done some number crunching. There had to be a clarification that was issued by the DMK on technically how many crores need to be allocated, how much of it is really going to be possible on an annual budget for the state to be working on here. But the AIDMK is pitching a higher amount here. How do you think this is eventually going to trickle down to the real beneficiary?
As a DMK, as a party, has this great respect among Tamil voters. That is, solvade seivom, seivade solvam. It means we will do what we promise and we promise what we will do. That is what we have been doing for the last 30 years. 50 years we are in power. Now there is this, a difference of translation or whatever. Because we promised universal basic income to everybody, to every ration card holder, to the women. We said we'll hand it over to that women. But here it is translated to that of a homemaker. We don't differentiate between anybody. This is a promise of universal basic income, which everybody said will improve the standards of living of everybody. So that is the basic difference. What MNMK said or what the Chief Minister said, you have to ask them and ask them to clarify. We are not differentiating anybody on the basis of homemaker. We respect women, whoever they are. They may be homemakers, they may be hard workers, they may be entrepreneurs, whoever they are, whoever holds a ration card, we will give the 1,000 rupees to the women who holds that ration card. That is the promise. We wanted to empower women. Only that money is given to the women, then
okay, so this is going to be for women across the board.
Yes,
that's interesting because even if they're women who are employed and they're working women, they're still doing housework and they can still be paid for it if they have a ration card. Okay.
Yes.
Let's get in our other guests connected with us here as well. We're going to take in reactions to what the DMK has just said here. The China NC spokesperson of the BJP with us, Dr. Ami Yagnik, who's the member of Parliament of the Rajya Sabha, the Congress here. Also, Dr. Fauzia Khan, who's the National Women's President with the NCP, and Captain Zoya Agarwal, Air India pilot. Wonderful to have all of you here with us. Next reaction, let's get it from China NC here. China, what do you feel about this view here? That there is, of course, there's a start of a dialogue process here. We have 3 political parties now talking about it officially as a poll promise, as a manifesto here. Do you think that this is just in the thick of election season? It's going to die down soon after 2nd of May when the results are announced, when the election numbers are out?
So, Sahar, this is election time. So, obviously, there's going to be a lot of commentary. But more importantly, today is International Women's Day. What do we want for the women of this country? We don't want just freebies, subsidies, SOPs. We want real translation of development, which Prime Minister Modi has done. I mean, you take a Jan Dhan Yojana, you take Mudra Banking, which empowers entrepreneurs, you take Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, you take the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, you take the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which gives a home to women. This is real dignity for women. Now, when it comes to the DMK saying that, oh, we are going to give you this and we are going to give you that, I only want to say that, election after election, people have given a referendum. And especially in a state like Tamil Nadu, it has not always been one party, because the voter is extremely intelligent to understand that you get these freebies only at the time of elections. And post that, you need to have amendments in the constitution. You need to have proper representation in parliament. You need to have better facilities. But Prime Minister Modi, whether it's an Ujjwala where you have a gas cylinder at home, or you have 2 lakhs to build a concrete home, which goes to Tamil Nadu and every other state in the country, I think is genuine empowerment. And especially on a day such as this, where we are applauding and looking up to all those women who have done India proud, please don't treat us as just as a vote bank. Don't treat us just as freebies,
Okay.
subsidies, SOPs. Talk about security, talk about education, talk about financial empowerment. And that's what Atmanirbhar Bharat is.
Can I rebut that? Can I rebut that? Can I just give me
All
10
right.
seconds?
Well, but free gas
Can I?
cylinders are also going to be looked at just handouts or freebies here. Should there be something deeper and more meaningful here, which works in the true sense of upliftment? Sarvanan, please hold on there. Coming back to you in just a bit. I need to get in all voices. Dr. Ami Yagnik here on this discussion with respect to whether or not one needs to be paid as a homemaker. And this is going to be very gender-based, because it's different from how we've seen basic social security, because it's for all citizens across the board, a bare minimum social security remuneration. This is only going to be for women domestic workers. Even if men are doing work at home, they're not going to get paid for it, but women would.
See, I think this is election time, as Shaina ji said. Talking about these freebies or giving out money, I think maybe only for the election time, because what we are talking about is a larger issue. We are talking about unpaid work and what women do at home, like child caring and elderly caring and doing all other works. Here there are other issues like, you have not given the right basic infrastructure, where women put in all their efforts from morning to evening just to sort out these issues on the domestic front. So this particular money doling out looks like an election freebie. But women will definitely understand that this is not real development. Women want education, women want safety, women want jobs, women want to see that their skill sets are recognized, they get opportunities, and in the long run they get some kind of a security. So these are issues which cannot be just talked about in a debate or at an election time. These needs proper policy in place, we need social infrastructure in place, we need to reduce the burden of homemakers, need to redistribute the work share, we need to recognize this aspect and then come to a conclusion.
Okay. But the Congress had first raised this issue in the year 2012 and then entirely forgot about it. I'm going to be coming back to you on that in just a bit here. But Dr. Fawzia Khan, in your view, is this just hollow sloganeering or part of just this one-off election campaign? You think our systems, our social security infrastructure, any of that is not in place to be able to facilitate this, to have homemakers' remuneration?
Homemakers' remuneration, as I don't think, it may look like a good idea, but definitely it's a freebie for the election. What we need is something more deeper. We need dignity for the homemaker. We need to value the work that she does throughout the day. 1,500 rupees is not enough value for what the woman does: child care, domestic work, looking after everybody, being a mother at home. I don't think this is enough value that is given. But at the same time, the more deeper problems, like the security of women, the sensitiveness towards their development, this is what has to be looked at by the government. Not just distributing subsidies is not the answer. I don't agree to that. And I feel when we come to the security of women, that's the primary thing which every government should look into. Because look at the Arms Act, for example. In the Arms Act, you have very stringent licensing rules. But why don't we make it a very, very simple and easy procedure so that a woman can possess her own weapon for her own safety? by just giving her a pepper spray or some chili powder to save herself. Some concrete decisions like this must be made in terms of her safety, in terms of her education, in terms of her employment, and especially in terms of her role as a leader. Leadership roles have to be given to women, and if she's not in the decision maker's role, and if you are going to keep her at the lower level, the lower wage level, it won't solve everything. So there has to be more deeper thought given to the entire issue of women's empowerment.
Right. Well, Dr. Khan, you made some very original points here on this, but let's also get in a neutral voice, someone who's achieved a lot and made India proud in her own steam, in her own right here. We have Captain Zoya Agarwal with us here as well. Captain Zoya, many thanks for being with us. Asking you purely as a neutral voice, of course, not wanting to get into the politics of this here, but as an issue to start this as a dialogue process here, that unless a work done is not paid for, it's not respected. So you pay for what the homemaker is doing at home as part of domestic chores, it will automatically be respected.
Namaskar, very good evening to all of the viewers out here. I would like to apologize. I'm stuck in traffic as I'm in the middle of this interview. I would disagree with what you're saying. Firstly, I think I have huge respect for homemakers. I think staying at home, managing the home front, looking after the children, it's a huge responsibility and a huge job. So my full respect and kudos goes out there to all the women who are doing this. And having said that, I would also like to add in that when you talk about getting paid for the work, which if you're not going to be respected for it, for example, there's so much of honorary work. Like take example of this flight that I did, where we actually flew 16,000 kilometers in almost 18 hours time, and we created world record by flying an all-women flight crew. That flight has changed so many lives. I did not know 2 months back that impact is going to be there on so many millions and billions of girls. Now I see it. I get these messages from people. That kind of work, when people get motivated from an example like this, that is also work, but that's honorary work. So not all work paid for, they're two different things, So it just basically depends on what kind of work it is. You cannot stereotype it and box it and say that this is black and this is white. There is a lot of gray, and you have to take every single example as it comes, I feel.
Okay. That's right. Well, stay on with us here, please. Since you're joining us on the road, you're probably headed for another flight here, but stay on with us as long as you can here. Yes, Mr. Saravanan, you wanted to respond because there's still a lot more to clarify, because questions are going to be asked for women who are employed and working in offices. Are not exactly asking to be paid for domestic chores as a bare minimum support. Should everyone really avail of this?
Yeah. See, first and foremost, I would request all these distinguished women in the panel to make a visit to Tamil Nadu, where we have made whatever the demands or whatever the grievances. See, when DMK was in power, we ensured that we opened schools. In 1971, when our great leader Dr. Kalanja was there, he opened schools in all the districts. He said, a women student, a girl child, but they will not allow a girl child to travel farther away. So we should build schools in all the localities. That was the first thing he did. And in 1989, we gave equal rights to women in the ancestral property. This was implemented by the Union of India only in 2004 or 5, after almost 15 years. And our great leader, Dr. Kalanja, gave 33%, reserved 33% central government jobs, Tamil Nadu government jobs for women. He provided for 33% reservation in the panchayats for women. And he also ensured that all the teachers below the primary are for women. So this is what we have done for women. And when we are talking about this thing, this particular thing, this 1,000 rupees, I told you, I clarified to you that this is an universal basic income. This is the first of anything which has happened in India. This is going to be historical. This is going to be a trend setter. We are saying every ration
No,
card
but
holder,
Mr.
in
Saravanan, when you
roughly
say it
translate,
is
yes,
universal, anything that you call universal is across the board, across gender for all citizens. This is very clearly
yes,
demarcated only for
that's
women
what,
household workers. It's not
yes,
even for
yes.
men who are doing household chores.
No, that's what I'm just trying to clarify that to you. See, we are saying that every ration card will be given 1,000 rupees. Every ration card will be given 1,000 rupees, and that 1,000 rupees will given to the head of the family, not the man, the women. The women head of the family, the 1,000 rupees will be given. This is our promise. And the confusion is, you are saying that we are trying to give money to the homemakers. That is not the case. We are saying we are putting the money, we are saying we are going to give the money to the head, women head of the family, so that that money is spent in a proper way. This is not to homemakers. There is no differentiation of that sort. This is for everybody. We want that money to be spent properly. That is the reason why we want to give that
Okay.
money to the women. And apart from that, our friend Shaina NC was talking about how Narendra Modi ji's scheme is revolutionizing women and all that. See, in 2005, when our great leader Dr. Kalanjar was there, he gave gas stoves. They said there is a fund crunch. Why can't we give just one stove with one this thing? Then our leader said, no, give them two stoves with two stoves so that
Okay.
the time will be reduced. And now it has been copied by the BJP, and they said they're giving gas cylinders. What the BJP is doing now, we have done 15 years back. So, in terms of empowering women, DMK is the
All right, so
forerunner.
it's nice that you're all copying each other for the benefit of women here. At
Yes,
least that's the good
absolutely.
thing. There should be no plagiarism,
We
copyright
never
laws on
copied.
that. But Shaina, please,
We never copied.
Shaina, please respond here to this. We should look at this. We should look at this dialogue process positively here. If there is a question of giving a basic remuneration to homemakers, first the challenges: how to identify who's a home worker and who's a home head amongst women in the family. That could be a challenge here. But how else would this work on ground? To make it work without criticizing it, to make it work is adding to a positive.
So, Seher, firstly, the cause of a woman is way above any kind of political agenda. Now, it could be one particular party doling out freebies, subsidies, SOPs, and saying that, oh, it's for the larger interest of women. So, if it is for the larger interest of women, let's not ridicule it. When Captain Zoya said how proud she is to be part of a all women's flight, I, as a woman, feel very proud of her too. When Fauzia ji says that women must be respected for who they are, I believe her too, and I agree with her too. Or when Amiji talks about, percolation down to the poorest of poor for empowering their lives of an Atmanirbhar Bharat, I agree with her too. So we can agree to disagree in our individual parties on other agendas. But when it comes to women, I just hope that in the days to come, we will be talking about more serious topics like reservation, talking about why we are at only 78 women in parliament as far as Lok Sabha is concerned, which is the highest we've ever had at 14%, but still a long way to go, considering in 2014 we had only 11 plus percent representation. So I think the time has come. If you feel that 26 women in Rajya Sabha and 78 in Lok Sabha is representation enough for the larger cause of women, I think it's not. We all need to stand up in our individual parties and unitedly take on this cause, because this is the cause not just for 8th March, which is International Women's Day, or some political agenda because Tamil Nadu or West Bengal is going to elections.
Right.
It is about the larger interest of you, me, and crores of others.
Right, but
who are
Shaina,
watching
now is also the time to make reservation work. We're going to be talking about reservation in the next half hour here on this, which is when I'm going to raise this point with you. But Dr. Yachanik, given the fact that the Congress, it was almost forgotten. I mean, we had to go through our research to find out that it was not Kamal Hassan's M&M who mentioned this in January this year. It was the Congress in 2012 which first raised the issue of homemakers remuneration here. And then it was totally forgotten. What happened in all these years?
No, well, when that was announced in 2012 or we were working towards that, there was a different consideration. I told you that we are in 2021. If another party picks up something and tries to make it an election freebie or an election issue, that is to be seen in a different light. But today we are talking about nyay, we are talking about issues that women require to strengthen themselves and to empower themselves. We have been talking about right to education when we were in power as UPA, and we have been talking about the Domestic Violence Act, Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act, because we believe that women need to be secure, we need to see that women are safe, they get a good environment, whether they are at home, whether they are in public spaces, or whether they are at workplace. So what we have been talking is women at the center. Women need to come out and feel secured. They may have a working environment. Automatically, they'll get empowered. But when we are talking about elections, when you just mentioned, you can't go back to 2012, much has changed. And what we are doing now, what we did in the last 10 years when we were in power, you have seen women empowerment which has taken place. We also followed the directives given by the apex court, as far as women are concerned. We also saw that after the Nirbhaya Khan, which happened, the Nirbhaya issue, the criminal law amendment took place. Today we find that women have law in their hands when they are in public spaces. We have come with cyber stalking also in that particular law provisions. So we want to see that women become stronger, women are able to assert themselves. And that is what women need, they need safety and security wherever they are.
Right. Let's talk to more parties in power, because this is more about not just empty sloganeering, but also being in a position to legislate things here. Let's in fact get that from the NCP. Some very interesting original points, Dr. Fauzia Khan, that you'd raised here. How much of it are we going to be seeing the Maharashtra government do this?
Well, most of this, what I raised, is related to the government of India, because I was talking about more subjects related to the government of India. And definitely whatever we can do in Maharashtra, we have come up with the Shakti Bill for women, for their safety. And Maharashtra, of course, will be going ahead in this. But what I insist upon here is women should be brought on to the decision-making table. And it is now high time that the Modi government brings in the reservation bill for women for discussion in Parliament, so that they, since have a very comfortable majority, this bill can be passed, and this passage of the bill can be a historic decision where women can really move towards empowerment, towards more leadership roles in the country. And only when women take up the leadership on a larger scale and not remain at low wage paid roles, only then we can hope to see a change, a real sea change in society, which is needed. Because today what is needed is more sensitiveness towards a woman. The other day I was traveling from Aurangabad on a train, and I saw a coolie woman pulling a cart. And in fact, because I was traveling in a group, I had a lot of luggage with me. And this woman, she put all the luggage onto the cart and she was pulling it. And when I tried to pull that cart myself, I really felt what immense drudgery it is. So we need to be sensitive, and we need to be more balanced about the roles that we give to the women in our country. And where there's a choice, I'm sure we should avoid roles where such drudgery is involved.
Okay.
Hello?
All right. Some of what you raised, I'm just going to bring it back to you. This is basis reservation here. My final question here to Captain Zoya, if you're still with us, Captain, if my voice here is going through, as you said, that this is a respectable job in itself. You're raising a family. You're anyway working towards the benefit of a country, of a given nation here, and you can't exactly put a price to it. But do you think the start of a remuneration is the step in the right direction, because it's still putting a price to it?
If that makes the women of our country happy, so be it. Anything that can make the women stronger in terms of being more empowered, yes, absolutely.
All right. On that note, we'll have to leave it at that. Captain, many thanks for being with us. We're going to be carrying on with this discussion. And as I said, it's also about the next aspect, because we have so many political voices on board. And once every year, if not through the year, this is one thing that we get to hear every year, whether it's really working on ground, whether there's really an intention to be working on ground for that 33% reservation. And now there's talk that 33% is not exactly the magical number. Maybe we should increase that more, but to what avail? Because it doesn't exist on ground. And it's been in talks for a decade and a half now, and nothing's really worked on ground. This is 33% in reservation in government jobs, in politics, in state assemblies, in parliament. How far have we reached, and whether or not this idea is now stale? It's a hollow, empty slogan. One needs to go beyond it. And we're going to be taking this through with our voices who've been with us since 8 p.m. We're going to be having newer voices here as well. But back to you, Dr. Yachnik, because you talked about reservation here. And you said that this is that one step in the right direction. But even if we have more women in parliament, more women in state assemblies, it doesn't directly work in immediately passing laws and legislations here which are going to have a direct impact on women's life, on the larger janta. It's not that formula, it's not that magical formula that as it is pitched to be every time.
I will give you, before I answer to your question, let us go back to the 73rd and the 74th Amendment to the Constitution. That is where the 33% reservation came for local body elections, and where women had to be taken in as 1/3. And that was in the 90s. And after that, this was Rajiv Gandhi's vision that in a participatory democracy, if women cannot participate, cannot take part in decision making, that democracy will practically be in a very different state of governance model. And that is why his vision to see that there's a law. And that is why the constitution was amended. Now, after 25, 30 years, you see that we find a woman sarpanch in a village. And then we find that in the last 25 years, we have had a lot of women sarpanches, more than 1,17,000 to be very precise, in our country. This would not have been possible if there was no law, because nobody, no society in India, our society is not ready and willing to just give tickets to women to contest elections. So this is going to be, this is the tried and tested thing. I think the vision of Rajiv Gandhi is there for us, and that is why 33% should be there for parliament and assembly. Let women come in, let them take part in the participatory democracy, let them even sit for decision making, let them think about the women. It will gradually become a success story. You just can't find that there will be overnight results, as you are asking, that any difference is going to be made. Of course, there is going to be a difference, but let there be a participation by women by law, because unless and until we have women participation in a democracy, in political arena, we will not have political empowerment of women. We will find economic empowerment, we will find educational empowerment, we will find find business and empowerment.
Now is perhaps
but
to have
the
that,
society is
because
still
we're
not
sitting in a
that,
central government
ready to
with a single party majority which is capable of bringing that in parliament here. Shaina, that's for you in just a bit, but let's also
Yes.
welcome Kalikesh Narayan Singh Deo, former member of Lok Sabha here of the BJD. And the reason, Kalikesh, hi, thanks for being with us here. The reason here being with respect to specifically what we have with BJD having already reserved 33% women amongst its candidates for the Lok Sabha 2019 elections here. What is that difference that you've seen on ground? This was something that was promised, that has now been met with to an extent. How has it dramatically changed things on ground? Should one be dependent on the single promise instead of working on other sectors and other aspects as well?
Look, I don't think it's an either or. The fact is that this women reservation bill was first introduced in 1996. And ever since then, a majority of the parties have been talking about it, but just giving it lip service. The Biju Janata Dal was ready to accept it and adopt it in any manner it was proposed. And we strongly believe that 33% reservation for women should be there in both Lok Sabha and the state assemblies. In fact, Biju Patnaik first introduced a 50% reservation for women in the local body elections way back in the 90s. And having said that, when none of the parties came forward, especially the national parties, the two national parties, the Congress and the BJP, in the last decade or so, the Biju Janata Dal so moto decided to reserve 1/3 of the tickets it gave out in the Lok Sabha to women. And I think about 6 or 7 or 8 of them have actually won the election. So it's a very good sign and symptom. And I find that, today we attended a meeting of about 5,000 ladies. Today is Mahila Divas. And you can see the confidence in these ladies. You can see how demands from villages have changed. It's gone from, temples and clubs to more of water bodies and more of drinking water and more of quality education. There is a huge benefit in ensuring that women actually come into positions of power and positions of decision making. I think the softer aspect, the very different aspect of development, actually gets picked up by women, because they may not have paying jobs as laborers in some cases, but they certainly manage their homes. And it's their homes and their families that they're most concerned about. And they actually are much more sincere and much more genuine sometimes than the other voters or other people that we come across. So I think, given that Naveen Patnaik has done it in a so matter manner, I think other parties should adopt it. And there's nothing stopping the BJP today from giving 33% reservation. And I'm sure 90% of the parties will support it.
Right, but we have seen very ugly scenes play out as we go through the timeline of the mention of women's reservation in parliament, or attempts being made to table it. There have been very ugly scenes that we've seen of papers being snatched and all of that nature of protests and sloganeering that we've seen against it. But Shaina, now is the time. We haven't had. We haven't had this number of a brute majority of a single party in the Lok Sabha. If it has the conviction to do it right now, why haven't we done it?
Well, I completely agree with you, and I'm not going to dodge the question. I think the cause of women's reservation is above that of any particular party. And I hope more people, more male counterparts speak like Kalikesh ji and say it as it is. But having said that, please understand the Bharatiya Janata Party is the only party in the country that has 33% reservation when it comes to organizational posts for women as well. So that's also a good start. You have women like myself who have been treasurers of the party for 6 years, which is unprecedented otherwise. So I think that needs to be also addressed. At the same time, when it comes to 33% reservation, yes, we want it in assemblies, we want it in parliament. You do have our male counterparts from all political parties who feel threatened and insecure and feel that their space will be completely hampered. And it is true to a certain extent, because in any Lok Sabha election where you have over 8,800 candidates, of which only 660 odd are women, And if you take 2014 to 2019, the escalation of representation in parliament from 11% is a mere 14.5%. Now you take our neighboring countries, whether it's a Bangladesh, a Nepal, and Afghanistan, or even a Pakistan has more women representatives than India. So I think the cause of women and women's reservation is way bigger than that of any personal agenda that any parliamentarian should have. And I'm glad that you have constantly shown that even a country like Bangladesh is so ahead of us, as is Afghanistan, and as I said, Nepal and Pakistan too. The point here is that every time this bill is tabled, whether it's a private member or it is, comes up for debate, be it the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, yes, we do have the numbers. I think this is the time, it's the opportune time to, the Prime Minister has done such remarkable work when it comes to women's dignity, whether it's triple talaq, or just ensuring, even an Article 370, or the fact that you have so many people who have had no voice in remote parts of the country, whether it's the Northeast or Kashmir, and here women are in a position now to feel empowered in every way. So this is the opportune time. I'm sure he will propose it when he deems fit, or when is the correct opportunity. But having said that, gone are the days of tokenism. We don't want to just be speakers and presidents and one odd chief minister here and there. I think the time has come for actual representation, and for any party that does give women that opportunity, they must be applauded for the same.
That's right. All right, and let's look at this as a pressing urgency. Glad you agree with that here on this, Shaina. We're very gracious of you here. We also connected with Ritika Bhattacharya, who's a social entrepreneur and author, and she's independently done a lot of associated work with different government projects here as well. Ritika, good evening. Thanks for being with us here. In your view, and more importantly, in your experience of what you've seen on ground here, what is the nature of representation, and where do you think the gaps are? Because we have such an active dialogue process here on this, where are the gaps coming in from?
Thank you, first of all, for raising this really important question and, talking about women's and women's representation. If you look at essentially where women are kind of, the final culmination of not being equally represented in parliament or in higher kind of echelons of power, you'll notice that it's essentially because there are gaps that exist in the fundamental stages of access to health or education, or getting access to equal opportunity in the workplace. So what you see finally in terms of the women's reservation bill is what is, multiple rungs of systemic blockages, what you can even say failures, to have women get those equal opportunities. And so, the women's reservation bill is very important without a doubt. But essentially, it shows you the final stage of problems that exist previously. If you give a girl the right to education, if you give her the opportunity to equal health, to proper nutrition, all of that provides for a young, healthy adult who can then go and contest for election. But by the time you get to a pool which is so small that having that reservation bill is not always as helpful. So, again, the topic is very important, but as someone who works in this space of gender equality, it is equally important to focus on the fundamental building blocks of what it takes to be equal to begin with. And I think if we can focus on that as much as we do on the reservation bill, I know we can go a long, long way with our counterparts in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, in South Asia at large.
Can I just add one point to what she said?
Okay, all right. Okay, sure. Go ahead, Shaina.
Sahar, I truly believe that for any opportunity that is given, that is the only way that women in our country can showcase talent. So are we at the mercy of our top leadership in our individual parties? Yes, we are, because the tokenism is such that a woman is given a ticket and then said that wo jeet paegi, and constituencies sometimes which are not winnable also, to tell you the truth. So I think that yes, there needs to be sensitization in a larger perspective, but only if there is opportunity can we showcase our talent. So all these numbers, and look at how well women parliamentarians have done. Of the ones who have fought, the highest amount have won and come this time. And that's why we have a number of 78 in the Lok Sabha, which, as I said, is not sufficient. And this bill clearly says that we only want this reservation for 15 years because we are competent enough and conscientious enough to win on our own accord. So if we do win because of our sheer talent of performance,
Right.
I think that
So
needs to also
this is
be
just the start of it, is
a
what you're
welcome state.
suggesting
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the thing is to make that start, to not be. Yes, to not be forever procrastinating of whether this is the right time, whether this is going to work on ground here. I mean, this is about hitting the ground running and high time. Dr. Yachnik, it's also more about the workability here because this is, of course, just reservation with respect to politics and government and parliament. But reservation as a structure per se, Dr. Yachnik, as how we understand it is along the lines of caste, and we don't have a gender reservation system. So what is the start that we're talking about, and how could it obstruct an existing system if it is really brought down to work on ground? It's going to be disruptive.
Actually, we should look at the social dynamics which exist in our society. There's a certain ethos, and we are definitely a patriarchal society, let us not forget that. And to see that every girl child gets an education, every girl child goes to college, and then she gets an opportunity to at least get some job. See, all these issues, to come out of that mindset of that centuries, we have to take a leapfrog to see that there is reservation in place. See, as Shainaji said, that, well, we don't want it forever. But to jumpstart, to do something, to bring them into the mainstream, that they may think that, yes, we are capable of taking decisions and sitting with men and in a room and take some kind of decision. For example, you take the Companies Act and the corporate sector. We had to bring an amendment in the company law that a woman has to sit on the board of the directors. So there, because of that mandate by law, the woman is sitting in the boardroom. Otherwise, it's not possible that people want men, or the society wants women to sit in these kind of senior positions, or the position where she can take decisions, she can show her mindset, or she can say that, yes, this is the way we go. So this is necessary right now. If you remember, it was in the last Rajya Sabha sitting that the UPA government did come, the Rajya Sabha passed the reservation bill, but it lapsed in the Lok Sabha. So we need a political will right now in order to give this push to women. If they get a chance, you give them an opportunity, they'll groom themselves, and definitely there will be some kind of a stronger, positive and constructive participation by women in the political arena. Once you see the political arena, women are setting forth the steps
and
into.
let's
we are seeing women in education, in science, in the medical field, in the lawyers field, in the judiciary, and in business enterprise. But we are not seeing them in political arena, and that is why we need the reservation right now.
We're doing it without reservation. So once again, it can also raise a question on why need that reservation. But yes, there is a very conscious obstruction to that path of reservation in politics here. But let me also introduce Mr. Suparno Moitra, spokesperson of the TMC, with us here as well. Good evening, Mr. Moitra. Thanks for being with us here. And the reason we have the TMC here, because the TMC exhibiting that as an example, because even as a state assembly, as a state assembly per se, 40 women MLAs, and strictly speaking for the TMC, having already reserved 40% here seats for women candidates, which we'd seen in the 2019 elections here. So Mr. Moitra, your message to the other voices or the other political parties that we have, saying that this is a difficult process, there needs to be a correct timing to this, there needs to be more thrashing out on workability, which is why we're not seeing it across the board, which is why we don't have other political parties do it.
To you and to all the fellow panelists this evening, I wish everyone a happy Women's Day. From the All India Trinamool Congress, it is just not an esoteric thought for us. We have displayed it every time that both in the panchayat, that in the panchayat system, in the assembly, also in the parliament. If you look at the level of respect that we have for women, it is manifest in the number of women who represent the people at several levels of the government. So what we would only urge the government at the center is not to pay lip service, but to show their intent and not get into it's unfortunate, but I would like to use the word excuses. I think rather than getting into that, it's important that they make their intent clearly manifest by bringing the bill in the parliament, ma'am.
Right, but Mr. Moitra, I also wanting to understand to what extent it really helps to have women in politics, because as we just had our other voices mention that women have made it and made it well in other sectors, in other fields. The struggle there continues to remain in politics, and why should it be this nature of a struggle? Because if we're looking at women's presence in politics facilitating larger things, how does this facilitate larger, better upliftment scenarios for women if we have women in positions to legislate?
I was hearing, because I got connected to this program pretty late, but I could hear the representative of the Indian National Congress, I believe. And she was also mentioning about this being a patriarchal society, right? So while we would celebrate these sort of days, but if you really look at the records, if you look at the labor force participation rate in India and post-COVID, we will also witness that the unpaid work for women has gone up, and they are not recognized. What they're doing, the participation in the labor force is also dwindling. Various facets of life, and if women are the lawmakers, and they understand it no less better than the men folk. So I think if they are there walking hand in hand, and in fact they could be better lawmakers than men, which is personally of the opinion, and my party also feels like that, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let me get Ritika here on this. Ritika, what we see through the day, which becomes part of the dialogue process, but which can very misleadingly build a smoke screen, because it's of course in good spirit, it's celebration in good spirit, but it is really just tokenism to have this one-off marathon, to have this one-off free lunch or one-off Twitter independence here. It's not a real measure that works in the long run. While it may add good cheer, it may add to the sense that yes, we're talking about women's liberation, but these are not measures that work in the long run. From your understanding, if you could list out a few specific workable measures, which is to sift through this noise and talk about real things that can work.
And I'm so glad you raised that point, because I think it is more than just today. It is about improving the systems. And within that, tangibly, if you look at few things, if you look at, access to education, the fact is that, women go to school, and if you look at the number of women who are graduating school or college, it's very high, but that doesn't necessarily translate into the workforce. And that is a fundamental question. The other major question, which, I know Urban Debate does a really good job on, is talking about law and order. Why is it that a lot of women don't end up going to the workplace? It's because there continues to be an insecurity about women feeling safe going to the workplace, working there. So tangibly improving law and order situations where it's more equitable and a woman feels safe to go where she needs to. And a more fundamental issue on having access to proper health. And I include nutrition. I include actually having access to the proper doctors. So I think being able to have access to proper medical care is also very important. So I'd probably prioritize law and order, education, and health as probably the three most concrete issue, which if we can do all year round, we'll be in a place where we'll have equal access, that we won't need one day to celebrate Women's Day. We'll know that we live in a much more equitable society.
Very crisply put across there, and I'm going to put these 3 points across to Kalikesh here. Kalikesh, since there is a larger representation of women in the BJD in relative terms, in comparative terms, do you think that these are issues that come up more often? Is there a lending ear to these issues far more seriously if it's about health, education, and security for women?
Absolutely. I think given the fact that there is a larger representation, it's the issues which concern women most. As Ritika was just pointing out, the access to health, healthcare, nutrition, children's welfare. I mean, there's so many others which you can associate with that. I think these issues really form a large part of the governance and also the agenda of the Biju Janata Dal at this point of time. Let me also inform you that currently we've just decided to move our Mission Shakti program or the SHG program into a department of its own. And soon we're going to have a lot more focused economic initiatives through the SHG model. And almost, I think, 60 lakh women in Orissa are involved with this. So it's a huge movement. It's a huge revolution. I think, honestly, if you ask me, I mean, I'd heard some of the other speakers talk about how being a woman in a patriarchal system prevents them from getting tickets and getting access to opportunities. I think if you make the opportunities more transparent, such as getting a primary system into the electoral politics where you don't have to depend upon the whims and fancies of your leaders or the mercy of your leaders, I think a lot more women will actually find place. It is a mindset within our political system which is preventing women from finding the correct place or just place. I think, yes, reservations should be there. They should be given because they've been denied access for such a long time. A larger benefit should be given to them. An easier path should be given to them. But honestly, I think women are as capable, if not more, than the men of our country. And given a fair chance, they will certainly find their fair place in the future.
All right, Mr. Moitra, final question here to you before we quickly wrap up here. And this is with respect to the TMC tying in the issue of fuel price hike, tying in the issue of LPG gas cylinder price hike to women issues, because women handling home budgets here are finding it extremely difficult. So it's not just about using these keywords of home buyer's salary or 33% reservation. These are fancy keywords at the end of the day, but it's more about everyday reality. And in everyday reality comes in managing that home budget.
But I would express my gratitude, ma'am, for asking me this question. Now, incidentally, the finance minister of the country is also a lady. As she is struggling with managing the finances of the country, similarly is an average lady of the household who is struggling. But the average lady of the household is struggling for the lady who is managing the finances of the country. So I think we possibly may go and would like to buy something for a Sunday lunch, but it becomes difficult because you may not be in a position to afford a cylinder which almost costs 825 rupees per cylinder. Right. The prices have gone up by 100
Absolutely.
rupees.
So there is affordability that comes into this here.
Absolutely,
and we talk about affordability of home budgets, which becomes as much as a women's issue as well. It has been so nice having all of you voices here to discuss this further through. It's been very important that we sift through all the noise and get the real issues and what really works on ground. And we're hoping that we've made some of those points clear to you for who've been watching us in this past hour. Many thanks for being with us.